All right, time for another Krug show. And we were thinking, we were brainstorming last week. Who do I want to have on the show? And I'm thinking, man, who do I really like talking sports with? And then I thought, well, I can't get that guy, so I'll get Mark Willard instead. No, I said Mark Willard. I love talking. We'll pretend this is a face-off that just runs amok. And no, but I love talking sports with Willard, and there he is, the man himself. Dude, long time no see. How are you?
To be more wanted than Jimmy Garoppolo is really, it's a feeling, man. It really, really, really hits me right there. No, I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you? How are you?
Good, dude.
You found a hotel ballroom apparently that will accept you, and
That's
and,
right.
and everything's looking fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I'm loving doing these YouTube live streams. Just so much momentum going right now. I'm feeling phenomenal.
Good.
So
Good.
it's really cool, and just getting a chance to kind of, you know, breathe and think about where I'm at, where I'm been, where I want to be. It's like we don't get that many opportunities in life to kind of think about things, and so it's been good. But I'm super excited to have you here, Mark, because you and I overlapped at the leader for 2 years, maybe
Two and
3
a half.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we would get into it. We would go back and forth. We just had a lot of fun conversations. We both have dogs named Penny, and your Penny has gotten huge since I was out in Marin and we were on the trail walking around. I would say double. Penny is double the size of Penny back then.
She's fully grown now. Yeah, she's 14 months, 15 months, something like that, and she's crushing it, man. She's been awesome. But it brings to mind, like we haven't really had a chance to admit what my departure was actually all about. And when you came out to see Penny the first time, it's because you were paying off a bet,
right?
And I got you a few times while we were there together. But then you got me. And so I was like, well, I'm out of here then. I can't actually
That's it.
I can't actually stay here and pay off a bet. So no, I owe you one, right? I owe you a round of golf in a Dodger uniform, I think. Is that what we got here?
You know what? Save the Dodger uniform. I would love to get, maybe does now of your group, only the oldest boy plays, right? Or
no, the
Jude's
little guy
pretty young.
plays, but he doesn't play by the rules.
Okay.
He's 8, so he just swings out of his shoes. And then however many, we walk all over the course, and then we get to the end and he taps it in and tells me he made birdie. That's usually the rule for him.
There we go. Well, we have a lot in common. We're both multiple boys, and we're both girl dads. So and I know your little girl, who's probably kind of the leader of the whole family. How's she doing? She's keeping you in line, man?
She's turned 13. That's all I need to tell you. She turned 13, so keeping me in line. I don't know, keeping me on my toes, keeping my brain wrapped completely around itself. All of that at once. I wish I had any chance of understanding what a 13-year-old girl is going through in life, but I'm doing my best.
That's there you go. You're a year or two away from who the heck is this?
Right.
You want to talk? What? Who is this?
Exactly.
I'm hanging up.
It's difficult, but she still likes me some of the time. That's the difference
there you
between
go.
now and 2 years from now, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. All right, let's get right into it, because you mentioned the Garoppolo thing. Florio had a rumor today saying that that John Lynch is telling people around the NFL that he's got an offer on the table for 2 number 2s for Jimmy Garoppolo. And then that was early morning, and then all of a sudden I saw that Matt Ryan was traded to the Colts. The quarterbacks are basically coming off the board left and right, and I'm looking at the Jimmy market going, okay, Jameis is now re-signed in New Orleans, take them off the board. Colts now have Matt Ryan, take them off the board. There's a number of Cleveland's got Deshaun Watson, take them off the board. Atlanta is Atlanta's got, what does Atlanta got?
Mariota. They signed Mariota about 2 hours after the Matt Ryan deal, which I presume
because Arthur Smith, right?
Yeah, I presume he's there to be the starter, and so yeah, they're coming off the board fast.
So just by looking at the teams, and I'm thinking to myself, is it possible that John Schneider and Pete Carroll and the Seahawks offered 2 2s for Jimmy Garoppolo and that John Lynch just doesn't want Jimmy in the division? Or is there something cooking with Carolina, maybe involving Sam Darnold? It doesn't make sense for Carolina, Mark, to have Darnold and Garoppolo, two quarterbacks that combined make a ton of cash. I don't know that it makes sense for the Niners to take Darnold off their hands, but if they wanted to throw that top 10 draft choice in the first round in the deal, then maybe if the Niners like Darnold, maybe that would make sense. I don't know where this is going, but make some sense of it. What's your read on the latest on the Jimmy front?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Houston. I know they say that they're all in on Davis Mills, but as you're sort of detailing, I don't know who we're supposed to believe
Right.
at this point, and what reports are true. And it feels like they're running out of options. But the thing that's sort of interesting here, I mean, I think the shoulder injury is what really got him here, is what probably changed this, because I know how the Bay Area feels about this, and Jimmy is so polarizing because they won a lot of games with him. But at the same token, a lot of people feel like this is showing that around the league, nobody thinks he's actually that good of a player. Matt Ryan only getting a third-round draft pick. I know part of that is salary and the cap hit that the Falcons are going to have to take and all of that. But the bottom line is, when you have a situation where you've got more you've got more demand than there is supply, there's something you would think in the way of a deal to be had for the 49ers. But that shoulder injury, I now am hearing, certainly, scared a lot of people off. So a lot of people are going to be like, wow, the 49ers overplayed their hand. Larry, I don't know if they ever had a hand. Do we know that they overplayed a hand? Do we know that they turned some sort of a deal down? They didn't know that he was going to injure his shoulder. They didn't know that he was going to get hurt. So I'm a long ways away from blaming John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and Parag and all of them for this situation. But yeah, what do they do? What do they do? Because I just don't see them cutting him. And you and I know this, the salary cap can be manipulated 1,000 different ways. I don't think the salary is the deterrent to actually keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the deterrent to keeping him is just the problems that it would cause for that locker room, making everybody choose, the stunting potentially of Trey Lance's growth, Jimmy being forced into an even more awkward situation than he had last year. I don't know. It feels like we're another move or two away from the 49ers being stuck. And then you get down to, do you cut him, which is embarrassing, or do you keep him, which is problematic?
I know. I mean, it's really weird, isn't it? I mean, okay, he had a great relationship with Trey, but how is that relationship going to evolve if suddenly Trey's the starter, Jimmy's the backup? Do you see any scenario where John Lynch says, we don't have a trade on the table? Jimmy, would you take less to come back and be the number two? Or is that just too big of a hurdle with, leadership and what that position means typically to a football team? Is that too big of a hurdle for them to even go down that road?
It feels like it's just, it's already amazing. Think about this. I thought about this a lot in the last, 72 hours. The situation that was presented to Jimmy when they drafted Trey Lance is, you're our quarterback, but we actually like somebody else.
Right.
Jimmy handled it all year long. He handled it perfectly. He played, he got hurt. They got to the NFC title game. It's the same situation that Baker Mayfield and Matt Ryan were just presented, and their teams were only flirting for the moment with another quarterback.
Right.
Both of them imploded in
Totally.
moments. Baker went to Twitter, demanded a trade. Matt didn't do anything publicly, but obviously to take a $40 million cap hit to give him away, there was some sort of conversation of, I'm not quarterbacking here anymore. So that's a real compliment to Jimmy, but it also tells you how complex these types of situations are. You're really going to have him do it again, and it's even more awkward. I just can't see Jimmy agreeing to that. Maybe the likeliest scenario now is you start to wait for injuries, right? Because I don't know who's going to necessarily want to pay Jimmy $25 million, but if we get to August And there are a couple teams that are still not loving their QB situation, Carolina, Seattle, whatever, maybe even Houston. And then injuries start to play in. And then Jimmy can throw. Jimmy can show people that he can throw and he's healthy. Then maybe it's a different conversation then.
Well, and also, what if somebody gets hurt, right? Carson Palmer, that situation where the Raiders dealt for Carson Palmer. There was a quarterback that got hurt, and suddenly Carson was out there, and there was a trade that came down. Man, that seems like a major roll of the dice. What do you think? I guess ultimately, what do you think the end game is? I mean, could you see him in Seattle? Do you think the Niners care if Seattle is the team that wants him? Do you think they care about facing him twice a year? Or do you think they don't really care? They just
I don't think it's so much worry about facing him twice a year. I do think it's difficult to get on the phone with Seattle though and try to broker some sort of a deal. If we fall in line with the idea of what Seattle's done in the past, Russell Wilson thought Pete Carroll wanted to run it a little bit too much. Well, if what you want to do is run the ball, then maybe Jimmy's perfect for you. But do you want to pay that for somebody that you're not asking to do much? I know Drew Lock's up there. They've flirted with Kaepernick in the past. I've heard Baker Mayfield's name floated there. Seattle in this moment still has options. But to answer your specific question, do I think the Niners would be scared of facing Jimmy twice a year? A, I don't. And B, they've probably run out of the ability to be picky at this point. Yeah. I mean, if there's a deal at this point, you've probably got to take it.
What do you think of the Niner offseason so far? I mean, they lost DJ Jones, they lost Laken Tomlinson. They've had some defections in free agency. They've made a couple of signings. They're kind of under the radar deals. I mean, they got the one corner, Charvarius Ward. They improved special teams a little bit. Do you look at them as improved? I kind of look at them as the other way. Like, they haven't replaced DJ or Tomlinson, and they're not quite as good on the line of scrimmage. But how do you see the offseason thus far? It's obviously we're not even into the second round of free agency, let alone the draft.
Yeah, I mean, a little quiet and longer to go. And obviously the big move we're all waiting for just hasn't happened yet with sort of recalibrating at quarterback. But yeah, I view them on paper as maybe a little bit less than what they were 2 months ago, mainly because of DJ Jones. You mentioned it. I mean, he's so unsung. That run defense is just it's the straw that has stirred this drink for the last 3 years for this team. And so if Kinlaw can be healthy, or if there's some other player, that they find that can sort of plug that hole and give them their production there, then I think they'll be fine. I love the Ward signing. He seems like a young, ascending player at a huge position of need. But overall, it just still feels kind of incomplete. Not just because Jimmy's still there. The receiving core feels thin, good, but thin. You know what I mean? Like outside of Debo and Ayuk and Jennings, we have no idea who's going to play at receiver. Maybe, Ray McLeod, is he? I mean, more than just a special teamer. So it just feels like there's more moves to be made, and they didn't get splashy, but that's kind of been the thing. I mean, that's the thing in our whole city right now, right? Like we're just all waiting for the splash, and it doesn't come. But then the team goes out and produces, and so what do you do? So plenty of time for them to get better. But yeah, they feel a little bit worse today than they did in January.
Oh, we're talking a lot of sports here with Mark Willard. You can hear him on 95.7 The Game with Dan Dibley in the mornings, and people starting to weigh in on the chat. Sons of Johnny LeMaster. Tom Willard was our algebra teacher at Burlingame High School.
Yeah,
Tom Willard.
I know.
Is that Pops?
Sons of Johnny LeMaster is all over Twitter, and we go back and forth a lot. And man, Burlingame High School, very, very well represented in sports talk and sports media in our town. Peter Hartlaub, his dad and my dad taught together for years. Grant Brisby, Burlingame alum. Grant Liffman, Burlingame alum. Drew Schiller, Burlingame alum. I'm glad I am holding it up for San Mateo just a little bit here, because our rival's crushing it in this space.
GTC Real says Mark Willard, a.k.a. the voice of wrestling action figures. That may need an explanation.
This is a true story. Yeah. Once upon a time, did voiceover work at Mattel. When I used to live down in LA, I lived about 2 miles from Mattel's international headquarters.
Okay.
And once upon a time, true story, I didn't get hired, but invited to audition for this in line at, I can't remember if it was Pete's or Starbucks, but I'm in line to get a nice latte. And a gentleman's like, hey, listen to the show. We got some stuff going over at Mattel. I want you to reach out to me on LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, I'm in there impersonating different wrestlers. I think I did The Undertaker. I did a little bit of The Rock. And I'm forgetting one more, but I think the batteries have run out now, unfortunately, but I've got actual wrestling figures with my ridiculous voice in it. That was a very, very fun and loud voiceover session.
We've got this one from Jose. It says, good to see the two of you, Jose. Thanks for checking us out. This is one that always gets me, and people run to these things. Vibe V, the Niners sure fucked up the Jimmy trade up. And there's a lot of people who are like, they screwed up their hand. We don't know what they were offered. We don't know that they were offered anything. We can't, nobody can speak with any definitive nature on they screwed up. So I think that there's a big, loud, like, Lynch screwed up, Lynch, Shanahan. I don't know about you. I mean, I you know me, man. If somebody screwed up, I'll say it. But I just think it's premature to say that those guys screwed up. I think it's too simplistic, and you don't know the facts, so how could you possibly make that kind of a statement?
No, well, I mean, two things. First of all, I know you've been doing this for a few weeks, and so I'm going to have to get used to our ability to use the F word. So
that's right.
That one got me there for a second. But I totally agree with you, just to do something that you and I never used to do. I totally agree. It's like they overplayed their hand. What hand? I don't know if they had a hand.
Right.
I know Jimmy doesn't have a shoulder, and I know that factored into this whole thing. There's no way for us to know what was ever offered, if anything has ever been offered. We know that there have been conversations. I just feel like, I mean, this is the 49ers. Like, do we all agree that they're smart? I mean, they don't hit on everything, but this is a smart group of people. They know what they're doing. If there had been a good offer on the table, it would have happened, but it doesn't even make sense yet, knowing we didn't know the big names that were going to be available. We weren't sure that Russell Wilson was on the move.
Right.
We didn't know Deshaun Watson was going to get cleared of criminal charges. We didn't know that Matt Ryan was going to suddenly be on the move. We didn't even know, therefore, that Deshaun would lead to Baker Mayfield being available. These, in many cases, are bigger names being available, and they're healthy. So it makes sense that they would go first.
All right, down the bottom of the screen, you see Good Guys, Hot Rod Custom Association. They've got a show coming up, and they've sponsored the Krueg Show. So why don't we give them some love here? It's the Good Guys 38th All-American Get-Together, March 26th and 27th. And you can check it out, Alameda County Fairgrounds. And, man, if you got kids like Mark and I do, we've been bottled up in the house and nothing to do. This is actually an outside show. You can walk around, look at the cars. It's America's favorite car show. There'll be 3,000 American-made or powered hot rods and muscle cars and low riders and trucks, and they'll all be out there on display, and there's lots of fun stuff for the kids. They get the Nitro Thunderfest, and they got a low rider exhibition, and they're going to have the Good Guys Fuel Curve Custom of the Year award this year. So check it out. And how do you check it out? Go to the website, good-guys.com, good with the dash in the middle, guys.com. You can register your vehicle. You can get tickets to the show. You can just get more information about the show. And as somebody who's been on site down in Pleasanton for it, it's awesome. So thanks to Andrew Ebel and the good people at Good Guys for sponsoring the Krueg Show. And check out the show. Antonio says, Jimmy to the Texans or the Panthers. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Jose says, Mark, I really enjoyed your account of when a cougar or a tiger or a lion broke loose at your high school football game. This was one of my favorite moments at the leader for the two of us. When we started talking about this, you and then had a personal connection, got the guy on who was actually there. Peter Hartlaub knew all about it. I mean, this thing took on a life of its own. several months ago now, but one of my favorite radio segments of the last
Well,
couple
yeah,
years.
and Jose might be referencing it. Actually came up just in a quick reference again on my show today. So I don't
Oh,
know
really?
if you'll
Okay.
listen. I appreciate it, but yeah, and I didn't have a personal connection. That was just the power of our shows. Like someone reached out to someone, said they're talking about you on the air, and next thing you know, the guy's name, who was Craig Henderson. Like by the time he called in, he's going by his middle name. So he had sort of changed his name. I forget what he was, but he's running a restaurant in the East Bay. Like that was, yeah. I mean, you want to talk about those organic conversations that ended up in a weird and fun place. That might've been, that was a night to remember for sure.
There was some lot of fun stuff. I remember driving home, listening to you interview that guy, and it was awesome radio. Let's jump to Farhan and the Giants. Giants played this weekend. Give me I don't know if you're like me. I mean, I watched it Friday night. I actually taped it last night, Giants Reds, and watched a little bit of it last night. They're on the tube again tonight, and we're going to do a little YouTube post-game show with their new beat writer from the San Jose Mercury News as soon as the last pitch of tonight's exhibition game goes out or is ended. What do you think? Giants opening weekend. We'll get into what Farhan hasn't done after what Lynch and Shanahan haven't done. But what do you think of how they looked on the field? I mean, it's awesome that baseball's back, and soon enough it'll be opening day.
I'm very relieved that the season's going to happen. And I thought you sent out what was just a very on point tweet in the last, I don't know, it's 2-3 days ago, when you said that a Giants fan is given this dilemma
Right.
of, on paper, this doesn't make any sense. You're watching the Dodgers become this all-time lineup, and the Giants have no response other than to get Jock Peterson, who will play in half the games. However, in the back of our minds, we just see Farhan going, works every time, and they won 107 games. So until they don't play well, how can you argue with anything? And I get it. So the frustration kind of goes back and forth. You want to feel frustrated, but you don't have the data to feel frustrated. So you end up just sitting there kind of uncomfortable. So at a minimum, the Giants have earned wait and see. Right. Reserve judgment until they actually play. And if they produce at a high level and hit more home runs than anyone ever has before, then great. But I will say this, as much as I would love, right-handed hitting pop at second base and outfield, which it feels like they need right now. Every deal that got signed, and I wonder if you feel this way, every big name deal that got signed, when I looked at the deal, I went, oh yeah, no, I wouldn't pay that at all. I don't want to do $6,140 for Trevor Story.
No.
I don't want to do $6,189 for Chris Bryant.
No.
The only deal that I saw where I'm like, ugh, that one I would have done was for Suzuki.
Yeah, okay, but we don't even know what he is.
Chicago for $70 million, and I don't even know if that's rational because we've never seen him play.
Right.
But like other players have made the jump, and it's looked good. And so that one felt like a shoulda, and who knows? Maybe he just chose the Cubs. These are, but it's fair to say the free agent hitters again don't choose the Giants. The free agent pitchers do, and so until the farm system starts spitting out hitters, and or the Giants use the trade market like they did last year, then this is what you're going to get. But we have no reason to think that, these guys that we've never heard of, who is this year's Lamont Wade? Like, I don't know, but it's going to be somebody because this is what they do. They get the most out of everybody. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think this year's Lamont Wade, I was watching this weekend, they have Alex Blandino who, played at Stanford, and then Blandino tore his ACL and then he broke his hand, and then the pandemic happens and he's kind of bounced around, but he's a damn good player. I know you'll get his numbers and you say, well, 225 lifetime hitter and he's 29, and right. I mean, how good could he be? But I think if there's one guy on that 40-man or non-roster invitee list that could be like a surprise guy who actually hits and serves a purpose, I could see it being Alex Blandino. I mean, Farhan is, he's the smartest guy in the room. People who played fantasy baseball against him will tell you this guy just wins, right? I just think that You know me, I hate being the trust me. Trust me, we're going to be great. Just trust me. Because I think I know the players, right? So, like, I'm going to sit there and go, trust you. You picked up Jock Peterson. But with Farhan, the one thing about Farhan, when you get beyond the laugh, which is glorious, right?
Yep.
When you get beyond the fantasy football, stuff, and he is incredibly intelligent. And what you don't see is he's maniacally competitive. And I just think I'm not going to bet against a maniacally competitive guy with that kind of brain power.
Yep.
I don't know who he's going to get. Now, I was looking at the list of who's out there, free agency wise. The one name that kind of is interesting to me, I want to know what you think of it, is Jed Lowry. Jed Lowry played for the A's last year. He can play second. He could probably play a little third. He can DH. He had a ton of extra base hits. I think it was like 14 doubles and 15 home runs. It was a lot of extra base hits in a very short amount of time. He's always hit. He hit at Stanford. He's hit in different spots in the majors. I know that's not the kind of name that's going to make people run. I'm going to buy tickets to the series, see this series because Jed Lowry's a Giant. I get it. But quietly effective offensive player who can play a lot of roles and Farhan may have a connection to. I could see Jed Lowry being a Giant in the next week or so. And I kind of like that idea. I think he could be effective. Farhan gets these guys that don't move the needle, but they're effective. I think Lowry could kind of fit that bill. Give me. I know he's kind of a no-name guy, but what do you think of Jed Lowry?
I mean, that's the thing, and I almost wonder if some of the big-name guys are not coming because, and I think there's, the reason used to be, they can't put up numbers at Oracle Park, and then the Giants hit all those homers last year, and so now the thought is, well, actually maybe it's that they don't want to be part of these platoons. I think the Giants would let someone play every day if they're the right person. They do it with Brandon Crawford. I think that the big thing, and Chris Bryant even spoke to this. He spoke to Susan Slusser about it and said, "Look, that they don't hand out 5-6 year deals for people over 30.
Yeah,
and we want that when it's available. But aren't the Giants actually probably pretty smart for doing that? And so, in the moment, in the offseason, we want the big name because it satisfies our ego, our excitement, but." How do we feel 4 years from now? Like when you know this better than anyone. When Farhan came in, the task he was given was to reconstruct a roster that had done too much of that. Big, bloated contracts that were late in the game and not getting production in Longoria, Crawford, and Belt, who then, of course, did start to produce. But so, yeah, Jed Lowry is not sexy. And Darren Ruff sounded like a ridiculous idea.
Right.
And Lamont Wade was not someone we knew. And then there'll be people who come up from the farm system. Tyro Estrada was like this little acquisition. Again, same thing. They're like, huh? And then now, oh my gosh, he looked really good. So in the absence of doing a 5-6 year deal for somebody who's got a big name, wouldn't you just take the production? And if they can find that in Jed Lowry, or maybe they like Conforto. I don't know what he's going to get. I mean, it makes sense. It's an entertainment product, so maybe you want big names, but I don't know if that resonates all that much in baseball. Short of Barry Bonds, even Buster Posey. Were you buying a ticket to watch Buster Posey play, or did you just love him because he was such a winner? We don't go to games to watch his clubhouse presence. Take over, So yeah, get the production. I do think, he said at one point, we're not cheap. We went after some people. It didn't work out. That worries you a little bit when Farhan says it didn't work out. But like you're saying, he's got more than one pitch. I'm sure they've got a backup plan and a backup plan to that and a backup plan to that. So yeah, I expect them to be very competitive. And the farm system might start spitting some guys out. Like, what do you think? Ramos will be ready this year? He might be up. Maybe that's your right.
That was another guy. Mark, I'm glad you brought him up because I forgot to mention him. He looked awesome the other day. He's in shape. He's lost some weight. The bat speed's there. He had a rocket to right center. As I used to say to Tom, a stream of milk. a stream of milk to right center. And it just, you know, I mean, I looked at his minor league numbers. His minor league numbers don't look that great. I mean, he looks like a guy, if you look at his numbers, you think, he probably needs more seasoning. But he's not Jalen Davis. I think he's better than those guys. I think he's on a different level. I expect him to play a significant schedule at the major league level this year. I think it's his breakthrough year. I'll tell you the other guy that looked really good to me is this kid Auerbach, who, you know, can play catcher and second and center, and he played at Alabama. And, you know, he hasn't played above A ball yet, so he's probably going to go to Double A for the first half of the year. But he looks like the kind of guy that might be able to bust in at some point this year and contribute. What did you think of the moves they have made with Carlos Rodon being the big one? And then obviously you mentioned Jock Peterson. Do you like Jock Peterson, the fit here? I mean, you mentioned it. He's kind of his platoon, his numbers against righties career are way better than his numbers against lefties, especially power wise. What do you think of those two guys coming in?
I mean, we'll probably never see him against a lefty. You know, he's going to, I mean, you can sort of see the outfield, right? Against a right-handed pitcher. There's going to be a lot of Lamont Wade, a lot of Yaz, a lot of Jock Peterson. You have a DH now. He'll get some time there. It's more like against the lefty who's in the outfield. You got Ruff, you got Slater, what else? I don't know. But, yeah, he's a perfect guy to come in and only use 2/3 of the time. And the other thing he brings, which is something Giants fans begged for years, which was a little fun and a little pizzazz in the clubhouse.
A little swagger, a little juice.
Right? And especially with seemingly Brandon Belt has hit a new stride on that front. You know, he was dry for 7 years, and then now he's the captain, and he won't stop playing that card and having a ton of fun with it. So it used to be that Pablo was the only guy that had any zip in the clubhouse. This will be a little bit more of a fun and lively group. And so Peterson and his blonde mohawk and the ability to hit the ball in the bay, I think will play really well, especially as a local kid. So that's good. I love Rodon. I think that they're going to pitch. They're going to be really deep. The pitching staff looks fantastic. We know they can withstand an injury or two, and there will be those. But to have him and you know, another lefty to go with Wood, and then, you know, you hope Logan Webb just picks it up right where he left off. Like, they're going to pitch. And even, you know, the flyer type deals, Carlos Martinez could be really, really interesting. You know, Matthew Boyd midseason, this stuff could all be really interesting, and they could really be loaded for bear there. But it just, you know, you wonder, I know what everyone's thinking, like, who's batting third?
Right.
Who's batting fourth? Is it just Crawford and Belt, and you're just hoping they do it again? I don't know. But is Darren Ruff in the middle of the order? Does he do that again? You know, like you said, I'm not going to be, and I've never been, you know this, I've never been one to bet against this guy. The moves that they need to make will happen. But so far it's been underwhelming in terms of the emotional response.
I threw out Jose Ramirez because I saw the Indians want to trade him, and he's just awesome. I mean, and then he can play a little second, he can play a little third. Jose Ramirez is a power hitter in his prime. He's the kind of guy that you just described. He could hit 3, he could hit 4 or 5, but you'd have to probably trade Luciano, or you'd have to trade Hunter Bishop, or some combination of good big-time prospects. Do you think we're at a point in Farhan's, you know, building or rebuilding of this organization, Mark, that he would be willing to trade a couple of, you know, top 100 type prospects for a guy like Ramirez, because he, you know, the market in free agency kind of went up and away on some of the guys that he may have targeted, and could you see him go the trade route and actually do something we've never seen him really do, and that's trade some of these prospects that he's accumulating?
I do, because actually, and I was having a conversation one time when I worked in San Diego with AJ Preller of the Padres, and he struck me because he didn't refer to, and the Padres had this great farm system, he didn't refer to them as prospects, he referred to them as assets. And
smart,
you know, like, it hits you a certain way, like, oh my gosh, you're calling these people assets, but that's how these guys look at it. And so they've done such a great job in building up that farm system, and they'd be stupid to think that A, all of them are going to pan out, or B, that you're even going to have room for all of them to come up together and play. So in theory, you've got to trade some of them. And we were just talking about how the free agent hitters won't choose here. So don't give them a choice. Trade for them. do like you did with Chris Bryant and just have him sent here and then see where it goes from there. So I don't know about Luciano. That I don't think that feels very good. I would probably keep him somewhat off the table because he feels like he could be really, really special. And it's been so long since the Giants organization has had that homegrown type of a like superstar, potentially big power hitter. I know, Posey, Crawford, Belt, but Luciano has a chance to, you're hoping that he's like a Trout type player. I don't know if he will be, but you mentioned a name like Hunter Bishop. Even Joey Bart. Like, we still don't really know what he feels about Joey Bart. Who's the catcher of this team? Like, absolutely, I do think that has to be on the table because they have a hard time landing any of them through free agency.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns with the Giants right now, but because of Farhan and Gabe and the 107 wins, in a way, Mark, I've never felt better about the Giants. I love Sabian and Coletti and the previous regimes, but I've never felt more confident in a regime that I am right now with Gabe in the dugout with his staff and Farhan and his lieutenants in the front office. I just think they've got the right personnel, and now we just got to kind of let it marinate a little bit. Yep. You were talking to Mark Willard, who stars on 95.7 The Game in the mornings with Dan Dibley. What did you and Dibbs talk about as far as Gausman? Because you were talking about, contracts that, you weren't too excited about. You didn't mind the Giants didn't go that direction. I didn't mind the fact that they said bye-bye to Gausman. I'd much rather have 2 years of Rodon than, 5 years of Gausman. But what kinds of comments were you and Dibbs on your guys' show? How'd you guys weigh in on Gausman and his departure?
Yeah, same. And I love Kevin, but you're watching what the Giants are doing, and you can certainly take issue with it in terms of how do the fans ever really, how do the fans buy a jersey? Because we know that everyone's only going to be there for a year or 2 years, and I get that. However, again, the concept here is that the Giants are trying to not only get good players, they're trying to get the best out of each player and get them at the best time that you can have them. And I think they probably had that with Gausman. Do you lose maybe next year, maybe even the year after, in exchange for not having him when he's 35 and 36 and 37? We've watched Gausman each year taper off in the second half of the season. Think about that as a career arc as well. Rodon for 2 years over Gausman for 5. And Gausman, what is he, 5 years older than Rodon as well?
Right.
There's no question which of those is a better business move. Plus, you get a little bit more left-handed, which I think the Giants needed. So, yeah, like it feels to me, and I don't know if this is true, but it feels to me like if you've had your 30th birthday and you ask for 5 years or even 4, the Giants hang up.
Yeah.
Hard stuff. Like, nope, we're not.
I'm okay with that.
And it's smart. They're doing that because the data shows it's a bad bet. Every time we bring up, like, when did that deal ever work? People go, Max Scherzer. Great. Give me another example. And because I got 20,000 of them that did not work when you signed the mega deal. Even when they're young, I'm not saying this isn't going to work out and I do it again in a heartbeat, but how's San Diego feel today about Tatis? Like, man, who knows what's going to go on there? So, like, you got to be real careful about 5 and 6 and 10 years and all this stuff. It's just shown more often than not to be a bad bet. And so, you'll get burned once or twice, but over the long haul, I think not doing those deals is going to work.
The text line blowing up. Philip Chavez. Damn, Mark, you just got off the radio. LOL. So he's
that's right. We were talking today about Draymond talking too much, and I finally looked at the guys and I said, is everybody? I hope the irony is not lost on all of you that a bunch of sports radio people are saying somebody else talks too much. That seems pretty ridiculous. So yes, still talking.
Oh, let's finish up with this. And I do appreciate you stopping by. And people should go check out Mark and Dibbs in the morning on 95.7 The Game. Let's talk about the Warriors. So last night, I'm taking my daughter to SFO. Her and her girlfriend's flying to New York City. It's spring break for Davis. And so they're going to New York City for a week. And she had like some her flight got canceled, so I had to drop her off. She's at the desk. I got to hang out at SFO for like 2.5, 3 hours last night. So I wanted to watch the Warrior game, but I couldn't. So I sit there with my phone, and all of a sudden I hit Twitter, and you're tweeting about the game, and Draymond gets then I went home and watched it. Draymond gets ejected. Wiggins can't make free throws. They lose another game they should lose, and they lose another game they should win. James Wiseman's future is, who knows?
Yep.
He's having swelling in the knee. Where are you on the Warriors? Because, man, it looked like a couple months ago, like, man, they're going to have Steph and Clay and Wiseman, and it's all going to come together, and they're going to run. Look what they did on Christmas to the Suns in Phoenix, and they're going to march through the playoffs. They're going to win a title. At this point, they may, but it doesn't look good. Where are you with Golden State and all the things they got going on right now?
I mean, obviously, their chances do not feel as good now as they did. Go back to the height of the optimism, Christmas afternoon, on the road, beating Phoenix at a high-level matchup, and it felt like this is the squad. But I will say this, for a team that has been consistently inconsistent ever since we got to the new year, there is still an avenue to incredible optimism, which is that we still haven't seen them play together as a group. And so maybe they won't, and maybe they will get beat in the first round. But the beauty of this troubling time is that in the back of your mind, you're still thinking the whole time, if you get to mid-April and Steph and Clay and Draymond are ready and Iguodala is ready to contribute and all those other, bench pieces, if Wiggins is healthy and activated, Poole looks like he's a budding star. If all of that is there, then absolutely they can turn this back on. I think Phoenix is tough. Phoenix is really tough. Memphis is really, really good. But you have to reserve judgment until you see them all on the floor, and maybe they won't. Maybe they won't ever get there. But we also know this. Of all the teams in the Western Conference, give me the one star who's not on the Warriors who's won a championship.
No.
None.
Right.
So what that means is the Warriors are going to take the regular season less serious than all of the other teams. They're just, I don't think they're motivated by a 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed. I don't think they care. And so, when you see Draymond risk getting ejected like that, it's because he doesn't give a rip about the 3 seed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
it doesn't really matter.
We'll see in April. We'll see in April
Wiseman.
when Jame Morant and Nikola Jokic and all of those guys, Luka, when they've got to do things in April and May that the Warriors have done in their sleep before. So we'll see.
What was the Dibbs and Willard level of concern on James Wiseman today?
Gosh.
Because that came down this weekend. Anthony Slater's like swelling in the knee. And when I read that, Mark, I thought, oh my goodness, this was the one tweet I did not want to read, because that says recurring knee problems. When I saw that, I'm like, oh, I had a picture of Greg Oden in my head. Now, Greg Oden had a microfracture knee surgery, totally different than a meniscus. But where are you with Wiseman? What's your level of concern with the fact that Wiseman can't get out there?
Yeah, it's high. There's no doubt. But by the same token, we do have examples, Joel Embiid being one of them, of guys, especially big guys, who have some trouble early. And then, it works out. I mean, the guy is still he's 20 years old. So his career is not over. But the concern, this does not feel good. This hurts for sure. And that kind of got into the conversation of whether or not you can label somebody a bust or blame the team for making the wrong pick if the problem was solely his physical breakdown, as opposed to just not being a good player. So, I don't really hold this against the Warriors, and there's still plenty of time, but it does feel like they're not going to have access to any of his services this year.
Last question, and we do appreciate you stopping by. Giants, Niners, Warriors, those are my teams, right? I take my kids to A's games, and I went to the Sharks game during the holidays and saw the Flyers come to town. But I'm basically Giants, Niners, Warriors. If I say to you, Giants, Niners, Warriors, who climbs the mountaintop first? Who gets the Giants win the World Series, the Niners win the Super Bowl, or the Warriors win an NBA Finals? What happens first? Who's closest
in
to a
this
title?
moment, I'm gonna select the 49ers.
Okay.
Believe it or not, because baseball, as we know, is very quirky to win the World Series, even if you're the best team.
Sure.
You know, Dodgers haven't won a full season World Series in forever. And they've always got the best lineup.
I like that. I'm going to use that from now on. Dodgers haven't won a full season. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm keeping that. I'm using that.
So, and then the Warriors, even though they're on potentially the brink of doing it this year, things are wobbly. And if they don't, you know, it's a bunch of injured guys who are just a year older. It feels like they're going to have to reboot within the next 2 to 3 years. 49ers, I know you're handing things over to a new quarterback, but look at what's happened to the NFC. Tell me who's a Super Bowl contender out of the NFC with Russell Wilson leaving the NFC. Matt Ryan has left the NFC. You know, you've got, I mean, all of this movement out of the conference, and you've basically got, as experienced high-level playoff contenders now, you've got Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Matt Stafford. That's it. That's it. If you're really looking at true Super Bowl contenders, and how many more years does Brady have? So the NFC is in this spot where it suddenly becomes very winnable. And if Trey is 80% of what they hoped him to be, the rest of the roster feels very ready and in a window. You know, they were right there a couple months ago. Like, I think within the next couple seasons, that's a real possibility.
I'm going to say Giants, and I know it's a major projection, but I just believe that much in Farhan. I think Farhan is so competitive. Their farm system's coming up. Their bad contracts are going to go bye-bye. They're going to have an ability to go get the player they want whenever they want. I'm going to say it's the Giants, but man, either way, any of the three would make me
right.
Very,
I would love it. I would love it if you're right, because we started erecting my Farhan statue I was talking about 3 years ago.
Hey man, good to see you. Love listening to your show at 95.7 The Game. Keep it rolling, and you know, we'd love to have you talking ball with us on some of our shows this year on YouTube. And man, I'm a big fan of your work and followed you before you came to KMBR, but really didn't know you until you came to KMBR. And you're a good man and good family guy. You got a beautiful young family, so keep it rolling, man. And you're welcome here any day, anytime. And I love chopping it up with you.
Anytime, bud. For you, anytime, anything. I appreciate you reaching out. I'm glad we can come here and debunk the rumor that we're not friends. So it was good talking to you, buddy.
All right, man. Take care. Mark Willard in the house, folks.